Welcome to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Myers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. In this episode's main segment, I'm going to talk about how to get your first few credits and launch your career. It's never been easier to get something produced, and even a low-budget, small film can help get your career headed in the right direction. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes, or if you're watching this on YouTube, please give it a like or leave a comment. I want to improve this podcast, so some honest, constructive feedback is very much appreciated. On iTunes, I had a bunch of nice comments, so I just want to give a shout out to those people. JDL, S. Sean, and Lee Moore's mom. I had a few comments on YouTube too, so thank you Max K, Adam Strange, Tracy Nell, James Torch, and Sean Speak. They all left nice comments in the YouTube video. This won't mean a lot if you're just listening to the audio portion of the podcast, but Max commented on my attire, which so far has been nothing more than a white t-shirt in every episode. He jokingly said that I hope that's not an indication how much screenwriters can afford. I actually own several t-shirts, but today I did decide to mix it up a little bit and wore my Star Wars t-shirt just to show my film geek cred. So thanks, Max, for writing in. As silly as some of these comments are, it's nice to get comments like this so I know what people are noticing. I really would have no idea what people are thinking about the podcast if they don't leave comments. So once again, if you have a comment, question, or suggestion, please do leave it in iTunes or YouTube. I look at all the comments and I'll answer where appropriate, and I really do find them helpful. So thank you to everybody who's left comments. A couple of quick notes. Any websites or links that I mention in the podcast can be found in my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcasts. Also, if you want my free guide, How to Sell Your Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks, along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide, how to write a professional logline and query letter, how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. It really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide to pick that up. A couple weeks ago, I had a meeting at a pretty decent company, and I was meeting with one of the junior executives there. He basically had a stockpile of very loose ideas, and he was calling in writers to see if any of the ideas resonated with them. There were a couple of things that gave me real cause for concern. Number one, these were unpaid writing assignments, meaning the writer only got paid if the company was able to sell the script. Now, I'm not above anything, so I'll entertain virtually any offer or potential deal. I'm not opposed to writing on spec for a company. I mean, in fact, most of what I end up writing is on spec, and when I'm finished, I just blast it out. So having a company develop a project with me at least gives me a leg up when I'm done, because presumably they'll take it out to their contacts. So there is some upside for this. And if it's a good company, which this company was a good company, that can be a significant help. Even these non-paid deals require a contract. What I usually do is just make sure that if the production company isn't able to sell the script in a certain amount of time, roughly, a year, sometimes they'll balk at that and want 2 years, but I basically set it up in the contract so that if they don't get it produced in a year or 2 years, whatever the time frame is, I get all the rights back to the script. I don't know if this company would have gone for that or not. We never really got that far, but we probably could have worked something out. Another big issue was that none of these ideas were really in my wheelhouse in terms just of kind of what I've done and most importantly, what I've sold. I basically think I could probably write about anything. So even though I haven't written anything that is that similar to these ideas, I do think I could have done a decent job writing them. But really, it was in terms of the actual selling of the script. I haven't sold anything like these, and I just don't really know how I would be able to sell the script even if I got it back. And that's a potential, huge problem. I mean, I know the producers that I kind of deal with, and I know what kind of material they're looking for, and none of these ideas really fit into that. So if I did write it and they were not able to get it sold and I got it back, I wasn't sure what I could do with it. But the main thing that gave me great cause for concern about this was that I asked him at one point during our meeting how many other similar projects he was working on. And, you know, he quite proudly told me that he had 30 other similar projects and that the company had another 35 projects. So there were roughly 65 projects that were floating around this company in various stages of development. The guy seemed like a real hustler, so I genuinely believe that he was actually working on that many projects. But I just thought to myself, so I'm basically project number 66 out of, you know, just these dozens of projects. So what are the odds that my project will actually get made or even really get any serious attention at this company? I didn't think that there was really much chance. They just had too many other projects going. But another big thing was that he was a junior executive, so it wasn't really clear to me how involved the main executives at this company were with these projects. My hunch is that they were not really involved at all, and basically they were telling him, sure, go out and develop some material, and if we like it, maybe we'll do something with it. So I felt like on some level this was really just an exercise for this executive to learn how to develop material and learn how to work with writers. He's apparently found 30 other writers to agree to this, so, you know, good on him. The one thing I'll say, though, is, you know, he really did seem like a hustler and a hard worker. So I know, I don't have no doubt that eventually he might find success in this business. And that's always kind of the trouble with these sorts of situations. I always feel like, that, you know, maybe it's a mistake turning this down because this guy could go places. And this guy he was smart and he seemed really, really hardworking. So I think there's a good chance he's going to succeed. I mean, it's just that old fishing metaphor. When it's time to go home, you just feel like, hey, if I could just throw this line in one more time, maybe I'll catch that fish. And you just never want to pull it in that last time because you just think maybe just one more time. And that's kind of the way these projects are, is, you know, maybe this would be the one that, you know, would just catapult my career to the next level. But overall, I just felt there were just too many negatives, as I just mentioned. So I did not pursue this particular project. So now let's get into the main segment. Today I'm going to go through some simple yet effective steps you can take to get your first few credits. It's quite common that I get all sorts of questions like, if you were starting out today and had no context in the industry, what would you do to jumpstart your career? Or what do you recommend to someone who wants to break into the film business but lives outside of Los Angeles? Or how do I get an agent? Or do you know any producers looking for a sci-fi screenplay? All these questions are basically the same. The person feels like they're on the outside looking in and they want to know how to get in the inside. And the answers to these questions is simple. You just start getting out there and doing stuff and meeting people and networking. You just start getting into the scene and all of these questions will answer themselves. I'm a big believer in really looking at the big picture. And the big picture is that this journey to become a screenwriter might take 5 or 10 or even 20 years. So what I suggest as a first step to get your career going is that you write a bunch of short scripts. And in fact, even if you've written a few features, you might want to take a step back and really consider this as an option. There is a lot of opportunity and not a lot of downside. It's not too hard to write shorts, so it doesn't take a lot of time, and getting them produced is fairly easy too. Last year, I actually wrote a short with some friends and it ended up getting into some film festivals. It was a really fun experience, and for the little bit of time I spent writing the script, it was certainly worth the effort. So the first thing to kind of establish is why should you do a short? I want to temper expectations a bit. First, there is no money in short films. It's very rare that you're going to find a producer who has a real budget for a short and is willing to pay money. And this just makes sense because there's no real market for short films. The producers, once they have the short, there's not really a way for them to make money off these shorts. So there's not really a way for them to pay the actors and the screenwriters. And that's totally okay. I mean, you're basically doing this just for the experience. You're not doing it to make money. The second thing is, a lot of people who do shorts, there's sort of this feeling that if it doesn't go viral, it's not a success. And this is just not the case. There are a ton of things you're going to get out of this experience, even if the short film doesn't go viral. So the key here is doing a bunch of shorts. I'm not talking about just doing one, but doing a bunch of shorts, writing a bunch of shorts, getting a bunch of shorts produced, and together they'll start to add up, and that experience will start to add up. So let's talk about some of the benefits that you're going to get out of writing and hopefully getting your short produced. One of the huge benefits is that you can get IMDb credits for shorts. Just having some real verifiable IMDb credits puts you way ahead of probably 99% of the other wannabe screenwriters out there. You can list this IMDb link in your query letters, and again, it's just another nice touch that makes you look more professional. If you're lucky, the short will be good and you'll get into some film festivals. Film festivals are great ways to network. Hopefully, you'll even win some awards at these festivals. And again, getting an award is more fodder for your query letter. All of a sudden, you're not just a produced screenwriter, but you're an award-winning screenwriter. A lot of the people you meet at festivals are filmmakers. So you might be able to meet some people who are looking for feature film scripts, and you're just going to network and meet people that you can collaborate with. If you get into a film festival, you'll most likely get free passes to a lot of the events, the opening night event, the closing night event. You'll also get some free passes to see screenings of the different films. So it's just a great opportunity, especially if you submit your short to film festivals that are within driving distance to where you live. It's a great opportunity just to get out there and get in the scene, see what other people are doing, and just meet people. It's just film festivals are really just a lot of fun. As I said, you get out there and all of a sudden you're in the scene. You're not just some wannabe who just shows up to a film festival, and you're actually a filmmaker at a film festival. And it's a big difference. Another huge benefit of of writing something and having it shot, even as a low budget short, is that you're going to be you're going to see a lot of the practical considerations to filmmaking. Actually, seeing your written words get turned into a film, no matter how low budget, it will be an eye-opening experience. The whole process will be demystified. There will be certain practical changes that get made to your script, and understanding why these changes were made will make you a better writer. Once you've done a few shorts, all you basically have to do is scale it up, and you've got a full-length feature film. I mean, if you do a 5-minute short, 10-minute short, once you get to a 10-minute short, all you got to do is make 9 of those, and you literally have a feature film. By doing these shorts, also, you're networking, building a Rolodex of contacts. You're meeting actors and directors and producers, and some of these people will continue to progress in their careers, and you can help each other out as you both move forward. And then, when and if you ever decide to shoot one of your own scripts, you'll have this enormous sort of Rolodex of people you've worked for. You'll know who the good people are. You'll know the people that you get along with, and you'll just know who to call. So you're just building a nice base of people that you can call upon to hopefully produce a feature down the road. Another benefit is that you're starting to build a fan base for your work. Slowly, as you do shorts, hopefully they will be good, and hopefully people will remember them. If you're really cagey, you'll start a YouTube channel and set up a Facebook page, and people can subscribe to these. You can start to build some assets of people who like your work. Down the road, these assets can really be valuable. Again, if you have like a feature film, or as you produce more shorts, if you have a YouTube channel or a Facebook page that already has some fans, these things can snowball. Hopefully you didn't get into screenwriting just for the money. So seeing your script turned into an actual movie, even when there's no pay and it's on extremely low budget, will just be an incredible sense of accomplishment. There's just, as an artist, you're actually seeing your script get made, and it counts for a lot, and it's a fun, rewarding experience. And hopefully you'll feel the same way. The other big thing about just doing these shorts is all of a sudden you're just in the scene. You're meeting other people, you're working with other people, and you're actually doing. You're not just talking about doing. So these first few steps, no matter how modest they may seem, they really are the beginnings of a career. So now I want to talk about marketing a short film script. Hopefully you can find local filmmakers who are looking to make some short films. You might consider taking some film classes at a local university. A lot of schools have film programs. Even community colleges will sometimes have film programs, and these community college classes are usually cheap. And the idea is that you take these classes and you're meeting other people that are interested in filmmaking, and one of them might be an actor, one of them might be a director, and hey, I'm a writer, so hey, maybe we could get together and make a short film. These also There's also a lot of local film clubs and film societies. Just Google the name of your city with film club or film society, and you'd be surprised what might exist, even in your small town. Meetup.com is another place where, film people might create a film interested in film group in your local area. So check out that. My writing partner and friend Nathan Ives, he's actually on a tour with his feature film, and he's doing a lot of screenings for some local film societies, and we've just been amazed. He's found these film societies in very, very small towns, and they're usually, it's all these people that are just interested in film, and they're usually very receptive. He's got a real independent film, and they're usually very receptive for that. So even if you think your town is very small, you'd be surprised. There might be some other people in it that are interested in film. Meeting the local filmmakers too is a real good, it's a real good situation, because then you can really be involved in the actual production. Part of the fun with these shorts is that you can go to the set, you can be involved, you can help do rewrites on the set, you can just see the whole process. But I do just want to say, if you can't find any local opportunities, all is not lost. There are definitely some opportunities in some of the big cities, and you don't necessarily need to live there to take advantage of these. But it does definitely help if you can find these local opportunities, because as I said, you'll just be able to get more involved with the production. It'll just be more education for you. But one thing that I've noticed is in the New York City section and the LA section of Craigslist, there's a writing gig section. On the Los Angeles page and the New York City page of Craigslist, there's a writing gig section. And I bet 3 to 5 times a week you will see a lot of film students, but even just people that are out of college and just looking to make some short films. They will post an ad, and anybody can respond to these. And all you got to do is just go to, as I said, the LA section or the New York section of Craigslist. Look towards the bottom of the front page. There'll be a writing gig section. Click on that writing gig section, and then just do a search in the search box. There'll be a bunch of results, and there'll be all kinds of writing gigs. But you'll just do a search for short film, and you'll be amazed at how much pops up. And in fact, taking a step back, do that for your local area. Go to the writing gig section of your local area and look for short films, and you'd be surprised. You might even find some people locally. Certainly in the big cities, Chicago, Dallas, you almost certainly will. But if you can't find anything locally, go to the LA section of Craigslist, the New York City section of Craigslist, and you will definitely find some people advertising and looking for some short film scripts. As I said, I bet I see 3 to 5 of these per week. Now, notice what I'm doing in this podcast is I'm talking about the marketing first, and this is an important point. One key is go and look at these Craigslist ads. Even if you can find local opportunities and local filmmakers, go look at these Craigslist ads where people are advertising that they need short film scripts, and do that for a couple weeks and get a feel for what people are looking for, so that you can write something that is what people are looking for. For instance, I see one of the things I notice a lot is people looking for very, very short scripts. So I'm not talking about write a short script that's 25 pages. I'm talking write a short script that's like 1 to 3 pages or 1 to 5 pages. And you're going to get a feel for what people are looking for by actually looking at the ad. So take a couple weeks and do that. As you start to brainstorm ideas for short films, really look at these ads and start to see precisely what they're looking for. As I said, these things are low budget, so another big consideration is having a very limited cast, 2 actors, 3 actors, having 1 location. All these things make it very easy to shoot. And if it's only 3 pages, you could literally shoot that in, half a day. If you get 2 actors, 1 location, it's only 3 pages. You've got something great. If it says the production of these things is very, very quick. And that's what a lot of these people are looking for. They just want to do a lot of shorts. It's an exercise in practicing the technical aspects of filmmaking, practicing directing, practicing all these things. So you really want to look at the ads and start to figure out precisely what they're looking for. I'm just giving you a quick overview, but really go look at the ads and you'll start to understand what you should be writing. So now I just want to go through and give you a few quick tips on how to write a good short film. There are lots of shorts out there that are just kind of very moody visual pieces, but they sort of lack a cohesive story. Well, as a short film, these can work. If you're looking to be a feature film writer, I think you should write your short like a feature film, only shorter. So that's my biggest tip. everything you've learned about writing feature films could and should be applied to writing a short film. It's just shorter. So again, make sure there's a solid concept. I mean, this is something I preach a lot when writing a feature film, is make sure your feature film has a solid concept. Make sure that your short film has a solid concept. And what that means is you can write a log line. You're still going to have to pitch your script. You're still going to have to write a query letter, and you're going to need a concise, clear, concise log line that you can pitch. So make sure when you're thinking about, when you're brainstorming ideas for short film scripts, you've considered this. What's the concept? Can I pitch this concept in a sentence? Is it a concept that really will excite people? Make sure that you have a clear beginning, middle, and end where the story progresses. Is exactly like a feature film. Clear structure. I mean, if you're talking about a 5-minute short or a 3-minute short, a 5-minute short, you know, a 1-minute first act, a 3-minute second act, and a 1-minute third act. If it's a 3-minute short, you know, just divide the time up into 3 acts. Even a small scene, which is basically all a 3-minute short would be, should have a clear beginning, middle, and end. This is going to make your script seem more concise. It's going to give it forward momentum. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but you know, these are going to be low budget shorts. So write these screenplays so it's easy to shoot. Try and limit the number of different locations used. Try and limit the number of actors. Try and choose locations that are easy to get. So not just few locations, but think about easy to get locations. Shooting something inside a baseball stadium that's fully loaded with people is not easy to get. Shooting something inside a you know, modest apartment. Most of these filmmakers that you're going to be dealing with live in modest apartments, so that's going to be a very easy location to get. You're just going to shoot in someone's location. You're not going to have to pay for it. You're not going to have to worry about permits, anything like that. So again, really think of some of the practical considerations when you're writing this thing. I would say also make sure your script clearly fits into a specific genre. And what I mean by that is that a lot of these people looking for shorts, they're looking, you know, if they're a director looking for a short, they may consider themselves a comedy director or a drama director or a thriller director, and that's what they're going to be looking for. So, you know, really be concise on what genre. This isn't just a random story. Be concise and write with some of those sort of genre tropes in your script, whatever those might be. I would say, too, if you're diverse enough, as you're brainstorming ideas, try and write scripts, short scripts, in a variety of different genres so that you have a wide range of scripts to send out and can submit to nearly every ad. As I said, when I've looked at these ads, it's a lot of times very clear what the director producers want. They want a short comedy film. If you've written 12 shorts and you have one that's a 3-minute drama, a 5-minute drama, a 3-minute comedy, a 5-minute comedy, if you can cover as many bases as possible, you'll be able to submit to more of these ads. And that's important because in some ways it's just going to be a numbers game. You've got to have a lot of scripts and you've got to be able to submit them. And in a lot of cases, the person is going to go off and shoot the script. So you're going to need to replenish sort of your stockpile of short film scripts. So try and be as diverse as possible. If you're only writing in one genre or only have, all 10-minute drama scripts, you're really limiting what you can submit to. You may only be able to find one ad a month that you can actually submit to. Whereas if you diversify what you've written, you'll be able to submit to a lot more ads. And what that's going to mean is you'll see a lot more of these scripts actually get produced. The next thing that I would say is a big tip for shorts is, if possible, try and have a twist ending. The Sixth Sense is obviously the greatest example of the twist ending, where you go through the whole movie and then at the end there's this twist and it just totally changes your perception of the rest of the movie. The shorts that I've seen that work especially well usually have some sort of a twist, a button, some sort of a punchline to them. So I would say try and keep that sort of in the back of your minds, whether it be comedy, drama, thrillers, whatever you're writing, try and think about that as best you can and try and come up with some sort of a button or a twist or a punchline for your short. There's a great short film. It's very famous, called The Lunch Date. I will link to that in the show notes, and you can find it on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and type in The Lunch Date. And it's a really well done short. It's about 10 minutes. And again, just like what I was saying, is it has a kind of a real twist. It's nothing flashy. I mean, the acting is solid, the directing is solid, but there's nothing flashy about it. But it has the twist is not, you know, as brilliant as The Sixth Sense, let's say, but it's a nice solid twist, and it really gives the script some real meat. Without this twist, the short really, it would be okay, but with this little twist, and I won't spoil it for you if you haven't seen it, with this little twist, it really gives it some real punch. So try and think about that on your own as you're writing shorts, and really just go to Google and type in great short films or short films, and I mean nowadays, or go to YouTube and type in award-winning short films, and you'll find a ton of them. So that's another thing you might want to do, is to start really going in and just looking at some other short films, and that will certainly educate you as far as writing these. One thing I want to be clear on. I mentioned this earlier, but I'm not talking about just doing one short and moving on and feeling like, hey, that's it, that's all I got to do. You know, perhaps you should spend a year writing shorts. I mean, if you write one solid short a month, after the year, you'll have 12 solid shorts. And in the meantime, you can start submitting the ones that you finished. But just think about how that's going to snowball over the course of the next year. If you consistently write, I mean, it doesn't seem as that unrealistic to write one short a month for a year. You'll have 12 solid shorts. Again, diversify, and these things will snowball. And as I said, in the meantime, the few that you've already completed, you're sending out as you're writing more. I mean, if you're a halfway decent writer, and this is really the whole goal of this thing, if you're a halfway decent writer and you're consistent with your marketing, meaning you're going to Craigslist, you're submitting stuff, you're trying to network locally. If you're a halfway decent writer, you're consistent with your marketing, I can almost guarantee that at the end of this year, you'll have a few credits. And that's really just so important. You'll have a few credits that actually mean something. They'll be on IMDb, and you will have separated yourself from, 99% of the other wannabe screenwriters out there. I just want to take a quick moment and talk about some of the other services I offer at sellingyourscreenplay.com. I just started a script consultant service. If you're looking to have a professional writer or producer read your screenplay and give you detailed notes on how to improve it, check it out. You can learn more about what I'm working on. You can learn more about who I'm working with on this at sellingyourscreenplay.com/consultant. I list a short bio for each person, as well as a link to their IMDb page. These are not so-called, script gurus or script teachers who have never actually done anything in the industry. These are all real working professionals with real verifiable credits. Also, I just want to take a moment and tell you about my Selling Your Screenplay Select program. You can learn about all the features I'm offering through it by going to sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. I run a monthly online class, which you can participate in by joining. I also do a monthly conference call where you can ask any screenwriting-related questions. And everybody that joins Selling Your Screenplay Select can come to these conference calls, and really they usually last about an hour, and you can just ask any simple question, complex question, anything under the sun. And it's a really kind of a good way to just get some, if you have any nagging questions about this or that or anything really, you can just come in and ask them, and I will try and answer them. All of these conference calls and monthly classes are recorded and available to members to watch or listen to at a later time. So again, if you want to learn more about this, just go to sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. In the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing Paul Murray. He's a writer and an actor, and he's actually going to be teaching one of these Selling Your Screenplay Select classes in November. As a writer and actor, he's going to be teaching about how to write great roles that actors will want to do. Attracting top talent to your script is really essential to getting your script made, and it all starts with the written word. Anyway, he'll be my guest on the next show, so keep an eye out for that. He's been in the industry for years. He's got a lot of produced credits, as I said, as a writer, and actually as a director too. So he's got a ton of really great information to share. So in this episode's Writing Words segment, I wanted to take a step back and hopefully expand on what I talked about in the main segment. I've outlined the points that I'm going to try and make in this segment, and I know it's going to be a bit rambling, but please bear with me. Hopefully I can tie it all together. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was this sentiment in Hollywood that we would start seeing talented filmmakers come from all corners of the globe. In the late 90s, the technology really made it possible for anyone anywhere in the world to make a movie. The quality of digital cameras was going up while the price was going down, and for the first time, you could easily edit a film on your home computer. It's hard to imagine as we sit here now in 2013 how much things have changed and how easy it is now, at least technically speaking, to make a movie. In fact, don't quote me on this, but I think I even remember reading an interview where Steven Spielberg was basically saying this. So there was some genuine excitement over the possibility that new filmmakers would be discovered from all over the place. But now, nearly 15 years later, I would say this largely hasn't happened. And I don't really think it's ever going to happen, especially in screenwriting. I think most people drastically underestimate the skill that it takes to write a good screenplay. People see musicians like Mark Wahlberg or athletes like Shaquille O'Neal jump into acting, and they assume that since anyone can act, perhaps anyone can write a screenplay too. I think what most people don't realize is that there is a long apprenticeship stage to becoming a screenwriter. I've said this many times before, but from my informal polling, I would say that the single biggest way to break in as a screenwriter is to get a low-level job in the industry. And it's not just all about networking and knowing the right people. It's about writing a good script. By being in the industry, even at a low level, you're coming in contact with a lot of writers and screenplays, and you're doing a sort of apprenticeship, whether you know it or not. You're reading screenplays, you're hearing people talk at a professional level about movies and films and screenplays. These things add up, and that's what being an apprentice is. It's being around people who know more than yourself and learning from them. I recently read a book called Mastery by Robert Greene. I'll link to it in the show notes. One of the main premises of the book is that humans have evolved to have this enormous capacity to get really good at something, to master it, and to become masters. But, and it's a huge if, it requires a long apprenticeship phase. And one of the points he makes in the book is that in today's society, this apprenticeship phase is largely ignored. And it's a big problem. There's so much emphasis on these spectacular events. You know, this athlete got a $100 million contract. This actor just got $20 million for doing such and such a movie. The long soap process, this apprenticeship phase, is largely ignored. You hear about the athlete who made $100 million, but you don't hear about that same guy as he went through Little League, as he went through high school and college, and really that's going through this apprenticeship phase. In the book, he actually gives several examples of this. If you think about the real standouts in human history, you almost certainly find a long apprenticeship phase. One of the examples he uses is Charles Darwin. Everybody kind of thinks Charles Darwin was just this, brilliant genius. But he was not just some fresh-faced kid who stumbled into the Galapagos Island. He had been observing and cataloging plants and animals for years. So by the time he sailed up to the Galapagos Islands, he already had the skills necessary to make the intellectual leap and come up with the theory of evolution. Mozart is another example he uses. When people think about child prodigies, Mozart is the quintessential example. He was literally playing all around Europe at the age of 5. But here's the thing. He produced most of his great music from age 25 to 35. And he died at 35, so there was no more music after that. So think about that. Here's a guy born with an enormous aptitude, just an enormous amount of God-given talent. And it still took him 20 years before he reached the pinnacle of his career and started producing his best work. Age 5 through 25, a 20-year period, he spent playing music and meeting other top musicians and composers throughout Europe. That was his apprenticeship phase. So here's a guy, more talent in his given field than probably anybody, or certainly he's in the top stratosphere of that. There's of that handful of people, and yet he still had to go through this enormous apprenticeship stage to really, really cement his place in history. I believe this is why we're not seeing fully formed, mature screenwriters or filmmakers coming out of left field. Filmmaking is such a collaborative medium that it would be virtually impossible to get to the highest levels while living in a vacuum. I know I'm going to get emails from people saying, what about this person or that person? They never had the apprenticeship phase. I'm not saying it never happens. There certainly are some examples of screenwriters who didn't work within the system and seemed to come out of nowhere, but it's rare. Diablo Cody, the writer of Juno, is a name that always gets thrown around in this context. Go read her Wikipedia page. She was a journalist for years before she sold a screenplay. Journalists are professional writers, writing words on a regular basis. They interview people, they write dialogue, they learn how to write within a specific structure for their stories. These are all great skills for a screenwriter to have, and I would argue that that was her apprenticeship phase. One thing I can tell you is that while my email and fax blast service works, so far I've never seen it work for someone who has no experience. People have found representation from the blast. People are optioning screenplays. People are finding paid writing jobs. But the thing is, in every case that I know of, the successes have come to people who have some experience in the industry. I'm not talking about tons of experience, but they do have some experience. For instance, I just had a guy a couple weeks ago option a script through a blast, and it's optioned to a real good producer. Up until then, I don't think he had any professional writing credits. However, he had been a theater actor for years, so he has some real applicable experience in the industry. He's been around the scene. He's reading plays. He's been reading screenplays for years. Obviously, being an actor for years is a great way to learn screenwriting. So hopefully you see where I'm going with this. The question becomes simply, how do I get the apprenticeship experience? Ideally, you'd move to Hollywood and get a low-level job. I really believe that's most people's best bet, but I also understand that there are circumstances which make this impossible for some people. Some people can't pick up and move to LA, and some people, even if they can move to LA, can't afford to take a low-level job. I get that. So what are they supposed to do? How can they get the apprenticeship experience that I think is so important? I think writing shorts and getting your shorts produced is one way. When I said that all the people who had found some success through my blast had some experience, I count shorts as experience. There have been people who have been successful with my blast when their only experience is short films, and none of these people had shorts that went viral or anything like that, but they had a few writing credits for shorts. In many cases, they produce the shorts themselves, so we're not talking about super high-end expensive shorts. We're talking about very modest films here. And that's the point. These shorts don't have to be fantastic to get value from them. So again, I really believe you need to go through this apprentice stage, and one way to do that is by getting out there and getting your short scripts produced. I wouldn't mind taking yet another step back just to put this whole thing into context. I've used this baseball metaphor before, so humor me if you've heard it. Imagine if someone spent a few months throwing fastballs at their local park and then showed up at the Yankee spring training and wanted to try out. What do you think would happen? They'd probably get laughed at. In fact, they probably wouldn't even get laughed at. They'd probably just get flat out ignored. If you want to be a professional baseball, you start in Little League. You play in high school. Sometimes you go to college. Then you go to the minor leagues. And then if you have talent, you work really hard, get a little bit lucky, you might make it to the major leagues. I would say for baseball players, Little League, high school, and college would be their apprenticeship phase. There isn't any baseball players that I know of that have skipped this apprenticeship stage. Some have skipped the minor league stage, but I've never heard of anyone skipping the apprenticeship. Here's the thing. I'm not saying it's impossible to skip the apprenticeship stage. Anything is possible. Suppose someone did show up at spring training, somehow talked their way into a tryout, and lo and behold, they were born with a massive amount of God-given talent. They just had a cannon for an arm. They could throw the 100-mile-an-hour fastball, and they ended up making the team. Just take a step back and think about what would happen if that actually did occur. It would be the sports news story of the year, and everyone in the world would start thinking that that's the correct way to become a professional baseball player, when it's not, and it never was, and it never will be. Years ago, I actually did hear about a guy who went from being a high school baseball coach to getting a tryout and making it into the majors. But as I started to dig into his story, it became clear that this guy had done the apprenticeship stage. He had played in Little League in high school, and I think he even played in college, but had gotten injured, so he got sidetracked. None of the news was talking about that. All they were talking about was that this guy had gone from obscurity into the major leagues. And that's the big thing about screenwriters, or really anyone in the entertainment industry, is that a lot of the times you hear about how they sold this script for $1 million, but you don't realize how much time was spent actually getting to that point. The other thing, and I mentioned this earlier about the entertainment industry, is that in a lot of cases, people do skip the apprenticeship stage in acting. So it makes people think that it's possible to skip it in other disciplines. What I'm trying to do here is, with my blog and now with the podcast, is really break down each step of this long process of becoming a screenwriter. And I'm trying to just break each step down so it's a manageable piece. So if you're just starting out, look at the big picture, and instead of worrying about how to get an agent or how to sell your script to Universal, worry about how you're going to get yourself through the apprenticeship stage. Or even if you've written a few screenplays and you feel like you're already past this stage, if you haven't had any success with them, maybe you haven't really made it through the apprenticeship stage and you need to take a step back and refocus your efforts. I don't want to make it seem like I think shorts is the only way to make it. Certainly it's not. But the bottom line is you've got to do something to get some experience under your belt. I think a lot of the tools that are out there, like my email fax blast, the blacklist, they have a new listing service, Inktip. I think these tools can work, but I think you've got to be through that apprenticeship stage before you really truly have a chance with them. Now, with that said, I think these tools can be a part of your overall process and a part of the apprenticeship stage, but you've got to realize that you're doing them to learn and grow as a writer more than doing them because you feel like you're going to actually sell a script with them. Just so you can see that I follow my own advice and I'm not just spouting out a bunch of nonsense that I myself don't follow, let me give you a quick overview of the events that led up to me selling my first screenplay. When I first got to LA more than 15 years ago, I enrolled in a master's degree program in film with a screenwriting emphasis at SYS. I did all the things that I recommend. I wrote daily. I read a ton of screenplays. I read screenplays for an agent, which was unpaid. I read screenplays for a production company, which again was unpaid. I did some very low-level production assistant work on several independent films. These jobs literally paid like $50 a day, and you would work like 10 or 12 hours. One of my first credits on IMDb is a film called Reunion. It's a low-budget feature film that I shot with a few of my friends. I essentially did exactly what I'm recommending in this podcast. I produced something that I wrote on a very low budget. We actually shot it in the late 90s, but it took us a while to get it through post-production, which is why it appears after Dish Dogs on IMDb. My first script sale was a film called Dish Dogs, and I think it was the 8th screenplay I had written. So by the time I sold my first screenplay and actually got paid for a script, I wasn't a rank amateur. I had done a lot of the work and gotten through the apprenticeship stage. Back to the baseball metaphor for a second. What I didn't realize after I sold Dish Dogs was that I hadn't yet made it to the major leagues. I should have been clued in on this when the producers of Dish Dogs showed me their most recent film, and it was starring Frank Stallone, Sylvester Stallone's not-so-famous brother. And frankly, most of the other projects I was working on were also pretty minor league. At the time, I just assumed that it would lead me to the promised land. Unfortunately, it didn't. And I would say to this day, I continue to play in the minor leagues of screenwriting. I have some decent credits and I make a significant portion of my income from screenwriting, but I'm still trying to make it to the majors and get to that studio level. What I've laid out here in this episode is one way you might be able to get through the apprenticeship stage. If you're really lucky, you might be able to skip the minor leagues, which is where I find myself. In future episodes, I'll talk more about my current strategy, which is about going from the minor leagues to the majors. So anyway, I've been rambling a lot longer than I had planned. Hopefully you found this episode useful and it'll inspire you to take some real action. If you do end up getting a short film produced, please let me know. I'm happy to help promote it on my blog. Just drop me an email. Anyway, that's it for this week's episode. Thanks for listening and goodbye.